So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thank you for joining us once again for yet another podcast with Moses Kemibaro on the Pure Digital Passion Podcast. Today, my guest is Ted Pantone. He's the founder and CEO of an interesting company called Turaco that focuses on insurtech within, first of all, the East Africa region and also expanding across the continent. Thank you for joining us, Ted.
Thanks, Moses. Great to be here.
So, Ted, I want to start off maybe if you could share with us and our audience today a little bit about your professional and personal background and how you got here. And although I know you have a very interesting background in East Africa, but I think it would be really cool if, in your own words, you can share a little perspective about your background.
Yeah, happy to start there. I'm American, grew up in California. Um, I moved to Kenya in I guess 2009, thinking I'd come for a year of kind of doing some humanitarian work and then go back to my regular life and get an MBA and progress through the corporate ladder in the States. But that was 13 years ago and I'm still here. I just kind of fell in love um with the place and wanted to kept finding new interesting opportunities to work with people on. Yeah, I've done the gamut of different things that one can do as um, everything from kind of charity work, nonprofit work to starting a Pizza Hut franchise in Uganda, and then most recently spending about 5 years in the micro insurance space and trying to figure out how to change the narrative from like the nonprofit origins to something that's actually a real profitable business model. That's just insurance, right? It's not anymore in the kind of micro sphere of things, and figuring out how to grow the market in a big way.
Okay, great. So it wasn't the Nyama Choma that kept you in Kenya, is it?
I mean, I'm a fan of Nyama Choma, for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, I've got my Mbuzi guy. Like, it's it's a mainstay of my life these days.
Yeah, so everyone is listening. Nyama choma is Kiswahili for essentially roasted meat. It's a very big cultural thing in Kenya and East Africa. So I was just wondering whether Ted, maybe that's the reason he just stuck around, instead of going back home. But that's great. And let's talk about Turaco. Like, I'd like to understand a little bit about the origin story. How did the business start? Where is it today in terms of your footprint, in terms of the various markets and segments you serve, and maybe you can share a little bit about the origins and sort of the progression from that point to where we are today.
Yeah, happy to dive into that. So when I first heard about the concept of microinsurance, I kind of woke up the day after with this just fire in my belly saying, I want to insure 1 billion people. Like this is a problem that needs to be solved. Um, I've spent enough time living and working in our markets to just understand that formal financial tools like insurance can actually really help people. And the fact that the insurance industry is really kind of a bit of a dinosaur industry, right? Really focused on the top 5% of the market. I think just as soon as I like started learning about it and understanding, I was just like, this is something that I could spend the rest of my life working on.
And you were seeing
Um,
this primarily from the African or East African lens at the time, right?
Entirely, yeah. I mean, that's the lens that I view the world. I mean, I try to be global citizen as much as I can, but I'd spent 10, 12 years in East Africa at that point. Yeah, I this was Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda are places that I spent the most time. I mean, you just see it, right? Like you understand that the the way that people manage risk in their lives right now is actually fairly sophisticated, right? People are the kind of communal nature of culture and the way that people share resources and do harambes and is really significant. People hold a lot of informal financial tools, but the power of insurance is really strong in kind of pooling a bunch of people's risk together in a much bigger group than like your immediate kind of Harambe community, and making it so that people that get in a really bad position can have some kind of recourse to get back on their feet.
Yeah, and I think maybe for the context of audience, I think maybe for those who might be listening, from a global standpoint, who don't necessarily know how it works in Africa, but I think the reality is that the majority of people don't have any kind of insurance, and in fact, for many, insurance almost feels like a luxury. So what tends to happen is when somebody's sick, or somebody, God forbid, somebody dies, the community has to come together to raise funds to cover those costs. Somebody's in the hospital, it becomes a brother, a sister, a friend, an aunt, a cousin has to provide the resources to do so, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. So, I mean, 90% plus of our customers have never had a formal insurance product before. So, I think you're entirely right. Most people have never had this tool to use, and um, it produces really bad results, right? So it means that if you don't happen to have a community that has a bunch of capital to be able to support uh, a situation, then you kind of struggle to pull capital together. You have to make really tough kind of personal, oftentimes life and death decisions about whether or not your family can afford to get medical care or manage other stresses. So yeah, it's a really tough tough scenario that is prime for products like what we're selling.
So maybe delve a bit more into how the business works. So that's the inspiration, and then how does the actual model come together?
Yeah, so the model is really focused at the fact that end users, like rural farmers, motorcycle taxi drivers, shopkeepers, the mass market consumers are really wanting to buy insurance products if those products are designed appropriately and priced appropriately for them, and then distributed in a really frictionless way. So the problem with the insurance model as it exists today is you have insurance agents, and those insurance agents need to sell really expensive insurance products to make it worth their while to get the commission that they need to be able to have a salary. So what we do is we use technology to just make that process a lot more efficient. So leveraging on the fact that people actually really want to buy insurance if they have the right products, we design the right products, and then we use technology to distribute them efficiently to people so that they can take them up, yeah, in a way that it just hasn't been available to them before. So the way that that works is primarily through partnerships with um, financial technology companies or banks or gig economy companies. And what we do is we partner with them to sell to their end users. So this is not like employment insurance. It's actually selling to the end users of these companies. So I can just give an example of Tugende, which is a large asset financing company. They do a lot of motorcycle taxis that they finance, and vehicles, and other equipment. They've got tens of thousands of users across East Africa, and we sell insurance to those users. So it's a combination of them kind of saying, okay, if you get a loan, you also have to have some insurance, and then we also upsell other insurance products to those users to make it possible for them to kind of have these insurance products to weather financial storms. So that's kind of one example of how the model works, where those end users, virtually none of them have ever had an insurance product before, and now those customers are able to access insurance through the partnership with Turaco, kind of as a part of the Tugende experience.
Uganda sounds like a Ugandan word, if I understand correctly.
It is a Uganda word. It means the same thing as Twende. It means let's go.
Okay.
So that company started in Uganda, but now has since expanded broadly. They're doing really good work, and have a business model that really appeals to people who want to acquire assets instead of just renting them.
So if I understand you correctly, what you're basically doing is you're taking the risk, you're unbundling it, making it more, I suppose, affordable, or in smaller packages that they can actually afford, and that then allows them to actually get insurance.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think there's another aspect of your business I think maybe you've not mentioned, but if I'm not wrong, I believe Turaco also primarily delivers its product through mobile devices. Is that correct?
Yeah, so everything is digital. We're kind of and we're a new age technology age insurance company, insurance intermediary insurance company. So we do everything via mobile, including like sharing the details of someone's policy to collecting claims documents via WhatsApp, right? Obviously, we're very careful about data privacy and making sure we're obeying all of those regulations. But yeah, we because we're doing things digitally, we can have much lower cost insurance policies, as you mentioned, kind of unbundled and distribute the risk in smaller increments. So that's really only possible with technology. If you weren't adding a layer of technology into all of that process, you could never deliver it at the price points that we're able to.
And what about the aspect around claims processing? Because that's one of the areas that I think, as a customer of various insurance companies, I think we've seen that can be a real serious pain point. And I'm just wondering the fact that your business is digitally enabled or digitally driven, how do you deal with the fact that, of course, the size of the package is fairly small? Processing that, in typical insurance companies in Kenya and East Africa seems to take forever. So I don't know whether that's something that you managed to crack in terms of also using technology to streamline the sort of the claims processing side of things.
Yeah, we definitely do. So for the tech folks out there, we use kind of processing algorithms to evaluate claims as they come in. We use AI to extract information from text documents that get forwarded to us, and images that get forwarded to us. So our system on the back end processes claims very quickly. So when a claim comes to Turaco, we receive the documentation. We're typically paying that claim in a couple of hours, right? It's not a multi-day, multi-week, multi-month process, as can often be the case in the insurance industry as it is today. And that's critical, right? Like a rural farmer can't wait 2 months to get paid. They need the cash quickly to be able to settle the bills that they have, from whatever situation has happened. So yeah, we process claims very quickly, and that's a huge part of the value add and the distinction that we have as Turaco.
Where is the business currently operating? Where do you actually have a presence on the ground as we speak?
Yeah, so currently we're operating in Kenya, Nigeria, and Uganda. Um, all three markets are unique in their opportunity and their challenge. But yeah, we have really thriving businesses in all three markets. And the newest of those is Nigeria. So we launched there really practically this earlier this year, and the business is already doing really well. It's an interesting kind of fintech market, so there's a lot of growth that we expect to happen there. Kenya is obviously the place that we started, so it's near and dear to our hearts, and a huge market for us as well. We have a lot of great partnerships here that are continuing to grow, and some new ones that are coming up as well.
I don't know whether you alluded to this already, but it sounded to me like the majority of your customers are gig economy workers, people who, are riders, people working on demand space. Is that correct?
You look at our customer base today, it's pretty proportional to kind of the general mass market, lower income segment across the markets where we work. So that means that the majority of our actual customers are rural farmers, because that's the majority of people that that exist in the markets where we work. So we do have a lot of motorcycle drivers and shopkeepers as well that are customers of Turaco. But yeah, I'd say the majority of our customers are rural farmers.
Oh, okay, that's really good to hear. And when it comes to, you know, unless I'm mistaken, do you prioritize health insurance or do you cover pretty much all types of insurance for your customers?
We cover a wide range of insurance products. The kind of core competency of Turaco is health insurance, and we did that because it's quite frankly the product that most people really want to buy. So if you talk to a rural farmer or a shopkeeper about the risks that they face in their lives, and you explain the value proposition of getting um, medical insurance or life insurance or property insurance to kind of cover their crops or cover their goods, the thing that makes the most sense to people from like a cost benefit analysis in like their own head saying this is worth my money, is medical insurance, some kind of medical risk, because everybody knows someone that's near a near neighbor or friend or family member who had to face this question of, do I go to the hospital, right? Do I have enough money to be able to go to the hospital myself or take my kid or my parents to the hospital, or do I have to just kind of hope and pray or wait and see if it gets worse, right? So that's a very present problem in people's lives, that insurance is a very, like, you can have a very low cost insurance product to help solve that problem. So that's the focus of what we do, and focus of kind of the systems and everything that we've built.
I know that this is a question that I hadn't anticipated to ask earlier, but are you able to, or give us a sense of the kind of numbers, how many lives you have covered at this point, or is that something that's confidential at this point?
No, it's not confidential. There's It doesn't really give you a ton of information about like the inner workings of Turaco. So we're very happy to share. We're insuring more than 260,000 people as of today.
Wow, that's
Um,
impressive. That's not bad.
thank you. Yeah, I feel very blessed that we've gotten to that state, and I think it's just evidence of the fact that actually this is a really um, obvious solution for people to take up. So that's in the kind of about 3 years since we launched in Feb 2019.
And I'm presuming that's accelerating with awareness and social proof. People talking to other people saying, I'm on this thing. It's working for us. You should get it." Is that how you're marketing? Is it more by word of mouth? Have you had to do a major education or marketing push to drive adoption, especially given that many of these people are getting insurance for the very first time?
Great question. Yeah, it's definitely, word of mouth is a big part of how we're growing in the partnerships that we have. So we market through these partnerships to the end users. So the word of mouth between the people that are decision makers at the partners that we work with, as well as word of mouth at the end users when we've launched in a partnership, is a big part of how we're growing. Honestly, it's people are skeptical of whether or not you're really going to actually pay claims quickly and honor the commitments that you've made. So as soon as you start proving that to people, then they're like, "Wow, this is amazing. All of my friends need to get this too."
Yeah, I mean, insurance, I think in the region has a bad rap. It always feels like, you're always, paying your premiums. You're always, getting chased for that. But the day that you have a car accident or like that even happened to me just, I think last year with my wife. And I remember it just took forever to get that sorted out. So I think, yeah, the skepticism comes from all these horror stories that it never happens, it never works. But clearly, I think if the evidence is that Turaco is doing it well and in a matter of hours, which I think is unprecedented, I mean, that must be wonderful for your customers.
Totally agreed. Don't get me started on insurance.
No, I can
Like,
I can hear you're very passionate, and I just love the way that you
yeah,
clearly.
I mean, maybe actually I will comment on it for a sec. I mean, insurance really sucks, right? Like the the way that it works is just shockingly bad, and the fact that like the incentives are all wrong, right? Like as soon as you claim, the insurance company think like considers that as a loss to their business, right? That's actually what they call it, right? And an insurance company, the name for claims payout is losses, and that's ridiculous to me, right? That's the product that we're delivering is claims payouts, right? Like that's where good customer experience needs to be first and foremost the priority. Obviously you need to manage it appropriately so that you're not paying fraudulent claims, but it, ultimately if someone's had a situation that they have insurance policy to claim against, like our job is to, as quickly as possible, get them the money that they are owed. Um, so it's a very different way. Like Turaco is a very different way of viewing insurance from kind of the way that it exists in most markets in the world. And I think that's a narrative that needs to change, and that we're hoping that kind of our success and our profitability and our growth will um, yeah, like lead to like the redemption of the insurance industry. Right? Like we're not having a savior complex, but like this thing needs to get back to the core of what it was originally intended to do, which is coming alongside people in their times of need, not making profits for executives.
So, as much as I feel the proposition as it were today, the way it's marketed and packaged, feels like it's serving, for lack of a better word, the bottom of the pyramid, people who don't represent the mass market, so to speak. Do you see Turaco sort of evolving to come to the middle class so that people like me can, buy into your product knowing that in 2 hours I have my money if I need to sort out something? Is that something that you're looking at going forward?
It's a good question, Moses. I mean, you're upper class, not middle class, my friend. So let me explain. So I don't ever want you to be our customer, because there's enough people that are trying to serve folks like you. Um, I'm very interested, and we're very interested at Turaco in continuing to expand our services into kind of the lower middle and middle class. The It's not the right way of calling people, but kind of the middle market and the middle income markets. We focused on the lower income customers because the problem is just so obvious, and the solutions are very obvious, and the access to customers, it makes a lot of sense. So we have some partnerships in the pipeline that are going to give us access to kind of millions of users across East Africa and Nigeria in the next 12 months. So our starting point is these very low cost insurance products, but at some point we will very likely be continuing to support kind of lower middle and middle income market customers as well.
So I think this comes to the crux of the matter. I think there's some wonderful news that came out recently. Turaco raised an impressive round, I think, of $10 million to essentially, I think, shore up the business, allowing it to grow and expand. And I would just like to understand a little bit more how that came about, and what you hope these new resources will allow you to do going forward as a business.
Yeah, thanks, Moses. We feel very privileged and blessed to be able to have raised that capital, particularly in a time when the economy is on a little bit of a shaky ground, and a lot of businesses are struggling to raise venture money. The I think the reason that we had a very successful round and brought on amazing investors like Africa Invest and Novastar and Enza and Global Partnerships and lots of other really good angel investors as well, is that the business model is working, right? So we're growing very fast and have good unit economics, which is kind of like the general products that we sell make money, right? We're not following the Uber model of basically giving away discounted rides to people and hoping that maybe someday you'll make a profit. So like the business is sound, and we're growing very fast. So that's the point at which raising a serious amount of venture capital investment makes sense to continue to grow even quicker, and yeah, build out a really good team to be able to execute the opportunity properly.
Great stuff. And I think I would just be very interested to hear a little bit more around, sort of the roadmap in the next 2 to 5 years. Where do you think you see this business going, the insurance, the uptake, maybe markets? Are you able to share some thoughts around where you see the progression of this business going forward from that point of view?
Trying to remember what I should talk about and should not talk about. I would just say you're going to see a lot more of our brand around the continent. I can kind of leave it there. I think the opportunity that we have in the markets where we're already operating is huge, right? So even just focusing in on Kenya, Nigeria, and Uganda, there's a lot of work to do. So we're trying to be very intentional and strategic in how and when we expand to different markets, and um, just not doing it poorly, right? So making sure that we've set up the business to succeed. So I can't talk about other market expansion just yet, but you're going to see a lot more of us and hear a lot more about Turaco.
And maybe, again, we can't avoid this topic, the pandemic. I'm just curious because I think at a global level, we've seen, the whole story of digital transformation. People went online. In my business today, we're still working remotely. And I'm just curious, like, what did you see, especially with that market segment that you serve? Did you see an increased uptake? Was it positive? Was it negative? I don't know if there were any perspectives around how the pandemic impacted your business.
Yeah, the uptake was certainly increased. People were aware of their mortality, right? They're aware of the health risks in their lives, probably in a new and unique way that hasn't happened in 100 years. So there was definitely a lot of increased appetite for partnership and increased appetite for insurance products as a result of the pandemic. If you look at the pure like insurance numbers, the reality is insurance companies actually made a lot of money during the pandemic because people were not moving around, not getting other illnesses as regularly, not getting in accidents because they were off the roads. So even though you had a increased risk around actually catching COVID, you didn't actually have as much people claiming against kind of all the other things in life. So um, that season has ended. People are now moving back around, um, which is changing that narrative a little bit, but definitely not on the demand side. I think demand has increased and will continue to be high now that people are more used to interacting digitally with different um, businesses that they work with, and yeah, I think more hyper aware of health risks with everybody walking around with masks on.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. Just to hear the fact that there was actually an uptick that the pandemic brought to light. And I think you're right. People were, falling sick and sadly passing on as well. So many
Mm.
people were affected, and the fact that health and having provisions to take care of yourself in the event, and insurance being one of the ways to do that, I think that was fantastic. That was very instructive, I think, to a lot of people that it is a worthy investment. Um, I'm just curious, maybe if you have a few last comments to share around, lessons learned. You've done this for a while. I've been in a startup as well before, actually a number of them. But in your case, I mean, running this business, starting this business, the last few years and, all the things that are happening now, this funding that allows you to escalate your business. What are some of the lessons learned along the way from a startup entrepreneur perspective, and any things that you think the audience would find, possibly helpful or useful in understanding what some of the challenges and opportunities that you encountered along the way?
Yeah, I mean, there's I can talk about that for hours. The the thing that comes to mind is really about just about team and the importance of surrounding yourself with good people and being kind of self-aware as a founder of the things that you're good at and not good at and making sure that you're in your very early days trying to fill the gaps that you have as a person is probably the biggest reason that we've been successful is the team that we've been able to recruit and bring around the table to execute on what we're trying to accomplish. So I think ideas are cheap. Execution is really hard. It's easy to find a good, interesting idea. It's very hard to build a team and actually execute that idea. So I would say those first couple hires are probably the most important determining factor of whether or not you're going to succeed, and then just maintaining hyper focus on getting the right people to be a part of what you're building. Right, it's far better to have nobody than to have the wrong body. So be careful and realize quickly if you've made a mistake. That's probably the most critical thing that I've learned. Though I've gotten that advice many times, I still had to learn it some of the hard way because we're all stubborn and think that we know better than everybody else. But yeah, that's probably the biggest learning I have. And then I think the other thing that I would just share with this with your listeners is um, go start something, right? Like the entrepreneurial journey, if you have that fire in you to stop being an employee and try your hand at building a business, just go for it. Like there's never a right time, there's never a wrong time to do it. And it's been a fantastic journey for us as a family. And yeah, been one of the greatest joys of my life being able to build Turaco with the team that we build it with.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. I think the thing that I'm picking up, Ted, from you is that this almost feels like a life mission, right? I can hear your passion. I can hear the purposefulness behind what you're trying to achieve. It's not fickle. It's not light. You're putting everything into this to bring insurance to many, many people who need it. And you saw a significant gap that you're hoping to close. So I think that's highly appreciated. You know, I can speak on behalf of the market, but also that I think it's also highly ambitious because it is in some ways quite disruptive of the status quo.
Yeah, thanks, Moses. It's definitely a calling. Yeah, the life of building company is sometimes not very easy. So you have to have a fire in your belly to make it happen. And my faith is very important to me, and like a clear driver of why I do what I do, and trying to build something that matters and do it in a way that is kind of loving to the people that we work with. So yeah, I think that you've rightly identified I think my vocation is a lot more than just a job.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's never easy to crack into a space that's been, business as usual for, possibly over a century in this part of the world. So clearly, and I think, people deserve the dignity and the opportunity to have this, for them. So thank you so much for joining us today again for the Pure Digital Passion podcast. Wishing you all the best and you and your team at Turaco in transforming the insurance industry in the region. And we hope to see you and hopefully talk to you again in the future.
Thank you, Moses.